Gary Peters just called out Kristi Noem for dodging congressional oversight, and what he exposed goes far beyond a few unanswered letters. It's about whether Homeland Security is actually protecting the country or hiding behind bureaucracy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Secretary Noem, good to see you again.
See you.
Secretary, I certainly appreciated your commitment during your confirmation hearing before my committee on fully staffing the Gordie Howe International Bridge between Detroit and Canada. As you know, one of the busiest border crossings in all of North America. It's scheduled to open this fall. It's going to be a big deal. But my question for you is, how are preparations going for the opening of that bridge? Obviously, your department will play a big role in that opening.
Yes, we're excited about it. We're thankful that the construction has been completed and that it's working well, and we're excited to coming up there and having the celebration with you.
Do you have the resources and personnel in place now?
Yes, we do.
Good. I also appreciated your commitment to fully building out the Northern Border Mission Center, which will be located at Selfridge Air National Guard Base to coordinate all that goes on along the northern border. How is the build out of that center progressing, please?
It's going well. It's on track. I haven't heard of anything that has been delayed, and I can get you a more detailed update, though, if you would like one.
I would. If we could follow up after this hearing, I would appreciate that. As ranking member of the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, I have sent you 9 letters since you have been sworn in as Secretary of Homeland Security. So far, I've received only 2 replies, and quite frankly, one of those was completely unsatisfactory. And while I understand you've had a busy start, like you have a lot on your plate, including travel, responses to congressional oversight requests are a priority. And I think you hold that view, but we're not seeing it being demonstrated, unfortunately. So my question for you is, when can I expect responses to these letters, and can you commit to getting me responses certainly before our budget hearing before his GAC coming up?
Yes, absolutely. Sir, I was unaware that you had that many letters out yet. I know some of the letters you requested had a lot of data to gather and information, and so that may be a delay on a couple of them, but we will get those gathered and get them to you. As you know, when I came into this role, we had a backlog of letters from senators and congressmen up to 4 years, where the previous administration did not respond to any of you. That was a universal complaint I had from Republicans and Democrats.
Well, we want to see that change. So
yes.
If we could get this back, these letters back as quickly as possible, I'd appreciate that.
You bet.
As you know, Madam Secretary, Congress spent years creating CISA, clarifying its mission and ensuring that the agency can employ the most skilled federal employees to protect our federal cyber networks and critical infrastructure from attacks. During your confirmation process, you stated that you wanted to get CISA back on mission, but quite frankly, you were very light on specifics of what that actually meant. Now that you've been in your position for several months, could you explain to us in detail what getting CISA back on its mission means? And I mean, with some specificity, which offices and programs in CISA do you consider to be off mission, and which ones do you consider to be on mission?
Well, as you know, CISA, under the last administration, got involved in being somewhat of the role of the Ministry of Truth. They were defining what was misinformation, disinformation. They were out doing election security missions, what were censorship, and deciding what was truth and what wasn't truth, and we have eliminated those functions within CISA. CISA was created to be an entity that supported small and medium businesses and also critical infrastructure, our electrical grid, our water systems, that are vulnerable to hacking attempts and influence from foreign countries, but enemies of the United States of America. So we are building out to those.
And I agree with all this. I just limited time here.
Yeah.
I agree with all that, and that is the central focus that it has to continue. But I want to clarify, because you talked about misinformation. I've heard this a lot. Certainly, I don't want to have any agency putting out misinformation. But CISA had 15 full-time employees assigned to countering misinformation mission. That's 15 employees out of 3,000 employees that work at CISA. And my understanding, and I think you mentioned it, those 15 people are not doing that anymore. So is CISA still not on mission? Is it still
It's getting there. We don't have our Senate confirmed leader of CISA yet. We're looking forward to that, and the
But
president's
that doesn't have to do with mission. I mean, why is it not forming a mission? Because my frustration is
why is what not?
Why do you say it's off mission if the unit that was doing that is gone?
Yeah, it's back on mission, but we still have silos to break down between our intelligence agencies. We still have communication systems that have to be built so we can share information. I shared during my confirmation hearing that one of the most alarming things to me that happened to learn was that when Salt Typhoon and Volt Typhoon happened, that we knew we'd been hacked, we knew who we'd been hacked by, but we had no idea how to stop it. And so building those relationships with the private sector to help us go out there and really get the information that we need to get the technology and expertise to get in front of those bad actors that would infiltrate our systems, I think is incredibly important. So making sure that we have those partnerships to get them with us, sharing information and advice and wisdom on how to stop these hackers before they steal our critical information is very, very important. If you know better than anybody, better than I do even, that we have 10 of the 16 critical infrastructure components under the Department of Homeland Security. So this is a top priority of President Trump.
So it is on mission now. This is on mission.
It is.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Peters. Senator.
This moment is small, but it's the useful kind of friction a senator holding a cabinet secretary to daylighted accountability. At surface level, the argument is about paperwork, 9 letters, 2 replies, an unsatisfying answer. That's the language of congressional oversight. But under that paperwork is the structural question: can the Department of Homeland Security actually be relied on to coordinate and protect the things we all depend on, the grid, telecoms, water systems, critical supply chains, and will it answer when elected representatives demand basic transparency? Why the letters matter. Congressional letters aren't bureaucratic busy work. They're how lawmakers collect facts, quantify problems, and create public records that can shape budgets, investigations, and policy. When a secretary treats those letters casually, or when responses are slow or incomplete, it weakens a key feedback loop in a democratic system. Gary Peters isn't quibbling about etiquette. He's testing whether DHS will let the committee do its job before it writes a budget or reauthorizes major authorities. That matters because oversight is not partisan theater. It's the mechanism that forces agencies to convert promises into verifiable action. Now the cybersecurity piece is where the conversation becomes consequential. The transcript uses the name CISA, but the agency in question is CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the federal hub meant to coordinate defenses for both government networks and private infrastructure. Over the last year, we've watched 2 name-brand intrusion campaigns called Salt Typhoon and Volt Typhoon touch off alarm across the government and industry. Those hacks showed how adversaries can move through telecoms and critical systems, and they exposed blunt weaknesses, fragmented communications, unclear roles, and a public that doesn't know the true scale of the damage. That's why the line about "we knew we'd been hacked but didn't know how to stop it" should give everyone pause. This isn't just internal bureaucracy, it's national vulnerability. Cybersecuritydive.com. Secretary Noem's answer that she eliminated functions she characterized as misinformation and that CISA is back on mission is a statement that needs specifics, not slogans. Removing units or shifting focus can be the right move if it sharpens the agency on core cyber defense tasks. But the public and Congress have a right to know which programs were cut or reassigned, what capability gaps were created, and how those gaps will be filled. Saying we're back on mission without naming the offices, the skill sets, or the measurable outcomes is like a company CEO saying we're cutting costs without explaining which safety checks will be preserved. That's why Peters pressed for detail. On mission should mean measurable readiness and demonstratable information sharing with state and local partners and the private sector. Cybersecuritydive.com. There's also a governance problem in play. CISA and related review bodies, like the Cyber Safety Review Board, create collective scrutiny and public postmortems after major incidents. When leadership disbands or sidelines those mechanisms, you lose a neutral accounting of what went wrong and how to fix it. Several senators have urged DHS to reinstate these review structures after Salt Typhoon, arguing the public still needs a fuller accounting. Without them, important lessons never make it into practice. That reduces the nation's ability to harden systems before the next catastrophic campaign. Industrial cyber. Finally, there's the trust problem. Noem points to a backlog left by the prior administration to explain slow responses. That may be partially true. Agencies inherit messes, but inherited problems don't absolve current leaders of responsibility. If there are staffing shortfalls at the Gordie Howe Bridge, or if the Northern Border Mission Center needs resources, or if CISA needs specific authorities and talent, those are concrete needs that require deadlines, named deliverables, and public updates. Promises are cheap in committee rooms. Deliverables, staff rosters, timelines, budget items, memoranda of understanding with the private sector are what change risk into resilience. For the viewer trying to understand why this matters beyond the hearing room, everything from your power staying on during a storm to the safety of hospital networks relies on coordination between government and private operators. When committees can't get clear answers, it's not abstract. It increases the chance that the next hack will be more damaging and slower to contain. When oversight is shrugged off as, "we'll get to it," taxpayers and communities pay the price. That's why this short exchange between Peters and Noem is worth our attention. It's the needle that ties rhetoric to real-world systems. Watch next for two things. First, ask whether DHS publishes a clear timeline answering each of Peters' 9 letters with redacted but specific data where necessary. Second, watch whether the administration reconstitutes independent review mechanisms and publishes after-action findings about Salt Typhoon and Volt Typhoon. Those are concrete markers you can point to when someone says, "we fixed it." If those markers don't appear, push your senators and representatives for clarity. This isn't partisan nitpicking, it's accountability for national safety. Like and subscribe to Left Lens for more breakdowns that don't just tell you what happened, we explain how the machinery works, why it fails, and what to watch for next.